Christians refuse to depict sin, just straight up refuse to depict sin. They refuse to acknowledge that Christians themselves in stories can have a profound flaw in their perspective and their worldview because of a wound in their life from the past. And therefore, the emotional journey of this story is so flat, it's unwatchable. Shawshank Redemption has shaped my theology more than most sermons these days. And same goes with Toy Story 3, one of my favorites. Forrest Gump, all-time great. 1917, and a little indie one, actually Oscar-nominated indie one, Sound of Metal. My goodness, you need to see that. But these movies and so many stories actually change people's mindset. They change people's worldview and belief system. That's the way that stories go. That's why Jesus told parables. And, he didn't tell people what they meant a lot of the time, which is shocking. It's like you had to be on the inner circle in order to figure out what he was even talking about. Because stories just kind of separate the wheat from the chaff. They do something to the soul, and we all know that. And I think if that's true, and if we Christians believe that that's true, then we should get really good at telling stories. So that is I would say, core mission of this podcast is to make ourselves better storytellers, to understand story better, and to be able to help frame it through the Christian lens, kind of see it for what it is. If there's a movie that you've seen in theaters, I'm thinking of The Odyssey, that is all the rage these days, then let's try to kind of get a perspective from the Christian lens about what that movie's all about. I'm rambling. My name is Phillip Abraham, and I am a filmmaker and a storyteller, and apparently someone who just decided to start a podcast. So, without further ado, welcome to the podcast that doesn't have a name. Just realized that. That is my personal mission for this episode, and maybe you can help me with that. Leave a comment. Anyway, welcome to the podcast that doesn't have a name. All right, that opening was slightly scripted. I threw the summary into ChatGPT, and it popped out something to that effect. I hope that it hooked you. Truth be told, I'm on the fly here, kind of winging it. I just decided that I wanted to start a podcast because, we'll get into those details, but my heart is overflowing. And without going too far, and without kind of deceiving you into thinking that I'm just sort of like going on a whim and have no idea what I'm doing here, I do want you to know that I have you in mind. Specifically have whoever it is that you are that is watching this that actually resonates with this whole, all this stuff that I'm saying to the end of this podcast. I'm going to refine this down so that by the end you realize either this podcast is for you or this isn't. And I'm going to tell you right up front, here's where I'm going. I'm a Christian, and I'm a filmmaker and storyteller. You don't have to be a film director for film and television or have accomplished anything in the arts whatsoever. But if you feel that resonance and you're a Christian, then this is definitely for you. I really want to just kind of like sit here and talk about the films that are coming out, the television shows that we're watching, and honestly talk some theology and kind of merge the two, because, I think that the battleground for our minds is in film and television and what we consume as an audience. And all the while, we feel like Hollywood is kind of, it's dying, or there's conversations about it really degrading. In the Christian world, there has been a long-standing debate, an argument that Hollywood is, of the devil and is morally degrading our minds. Is that true? Is that always true for every film that comes out of Hollywood? Spoiler alert, I don't think so. But, we'll talk about it. So that's really the gist of what I'm trying to get to here. And if you feel like that resonates with you, then I'm going to tell you up front, then, you should probably, just for my sake, subscribe or become a member to to this podcast, and that way I know that you're out there. I'm gonna be frank with you. I'm gonna do this until it just hurts too much. So if you could give me a little bit of encouragement, and follow along in this journey. I don't want you to just kind of like follow. I actually think that you can really inform what I'm doing here. I want to have guests on the show. I want to talk about things that you care about. And so let's engage. Let's kind of have a real conversation. I'm willing to talk about any films that you have seen or you're really resonating with, or maybe something that feels like it's got something wrong with it and you're not exactly sure why. I'm here for it. So if you're here for it, I'm here for it. And I already appreciate that you've gotten this far, frankly. So yeah, the purpose of this podcast, to kind of follow my notes here, is beyond what I just told you. I do personally want to kind of sharpen my craft as well. I kind of, as much as I'm a filmmaker, and on one side of my life, I will analyze film and write screenplays and direct film and television in a particular way that tries to harness the greats and try to think about the best films and television that I can and emulate good directors. On the flip side, as a consumer, I just sort of watch movies and then I turn the TV off. I had a friend, Dan, recently. Shout out to Dan Florin. He told me that he likes to sit through the credits of the film that he watches. Who does that? But he said it's because he likes to stop and just let it digest for a second. And I really need to figure out how to do that, because I am a storyteller after all. My wife, Leah, who you may know because we do social media content together, she has a really good way of sitting and talking about this story that we just watched and what we just experienced. She's one of those people who likes to talk through a movie, but not in like a bad way where she's talking about something kind of random or she's like dumb and doesn't know what's going on. She has to like figure out what's going on. She will make predictions about the story. She will verbally express how she's feeling about that moment right now, which is great for me as a screenwriter, because when she reads my scripts or we're going over storytelling, she will visibly, audibly gasp or react to the moments, and then she'll explain how it made her feel. So, I don't do that too well, and all too often, I think I just sort of like let a good story pass me by and just sort of go in one ear and we'll say in one eye and out the other. And I don't want to do that. I don't think that we should do that, especially as Christians. What we intake is the start of our thoughts and then our words and our actions and our habits. That's where it all begins. And so I want to stop and think about the things that I'm watching. And I know as a storyteller, that's going to improve my craft. I think it's going to improve your craft as well, whether you're like a screenwriter, like me, a film director, or even someone who's an actor or a cinematographer. Frankly, music and film score is something that really can be informed by the stuff that's coming out right now. My composer for this short that I just did, Vinny Barbosa, shout out to Vinny, he actually said, he kind of explained to me a relationship that he had with, I believe it was Christopher Nolan, and his composer, that they would write stuff before the film is even written, and the writing of that music and listening back to that music would inspire the script itself. So, all to say, if you're a creative of any kind, an entertainer, I would say, then let's go along together and sort of analyze and discuss story in the framework of theology. And let me just give one more pitch as to why this is so critical. Jesus did it. Like, the Bible says that Jesus did nothing without telling a parable. We don't have a Christian table that Jesus built as a carpenter, right? We don't have like that would be if we could grab a table that he built, we could say truly it's a Christian table, meaning that it was built from Christ. You've heard people talk about the Pauline theology or the Abrahamic covenant, right? So Christian is meant to be of Christ. So Christian stories are really the parables that Jesus taught. They are like, if we want to tell a Christian story, we should emulate Christ by telling an analogy, a parable, kind of seeding what we believe and what we're trying to tell the audience inside of a narrative. I think Jesus was onto something when he was doing that, in trying to influence the minds of the people who were listening. He knew that stories are the way to the soul. So I think that we should just stop and pause. By the way, he didn't tell really any stories about conversion. He didn't make up stories about how someone came to him and someone converted to him. He was telling stories that were of the time, agricultural stories, because it was an agricultural culture. And we can tell stories that are relevant to what is going on in our culture. That concept is vast. But nevertheless, he told stories, and that's how he changed the world. Granted, he also did a lot of miracles and raised from the dead. So there's that too. But I want to say too that I've been really dwelling on this for a while. And if you'll allow me, I just want to explain why I am starting this now, why I didn't start sooner. I have been in Hollywood for 12 years of my life. I mean, on and off, honestly, since 2008. And then my wife and I moved to Nashville 2 years ago. So it's a long time to devote my life to this party that was happening. Are you allowed to cough on podcasts? I think usually there's a cough button. I'm not cool enough for that yet, but I'm going to have a cough button eventually, because that will not be the last cough. Anyway, Hollywood it was experienced kind of like a party. I was always trying to get into this party, and I always felt like if I expressed myself and my Christian beliefs too much, that the disguise I was wearing as some hip, trendy Hollywood storyteller, filmmaker, actor, writer would sort of get ripped off my face by the guy at the door and be like, I see who you are, so get the heck out of here. You're not allowed in the party. And eventually that really just happened. I couldn't really contend with my personal beliefs, my personal convictions, and fit it into Hollywood. And so we moved to Nashville, I think in part for those reasons. So to be frank, there's just no, what else have I got to lose? We are building our own media company and having a great time. Leah and I working together to make really fun content and to try to make money doing our art. And that's opened a lot of doors. And so, I think I also feel empowered to finally, put my voice out there and start talking about these things that I've always found to be really important. I worked for Alfre Woodard as a development executive for her company, and she is just the kindest woman. Her and her husband, Roderick, are just the most amazing people. And they hold a lot of actually similar religious, I would say, notions and beliefs that I do. And yet there was a lot of differences. And I kind of recognized that there was some things that I probably shouldn't express while I'm at work. And, that's probably true for everybody. So it's not like I'm talking about condemnation or persecution here, though there was some of that in 2020 as well, if y'all know what I'm talking about, in LA. So we came here to Nashville and finally found a community of people, as well as some work in 2022. And they were described as refugees to us. We were included among those people coming here to Nashville, a bunch of people from New York and LA, and finding just an ability to express ourselves, an ability to kind of collect together as outspoken Christians. And there was no condemnation about what we believed that kind of were adjacent to our Christian beliefs as well. Conversations about I don't know if you can say the word schmovid anymore, if they like block you for that, but I'm so used to it, like schmovid, schmighteen. It's like that happened. You remember that? It's crazy. So there was none of that censoring going on in Nashville. So we, among many other reasons, we really liked that we had the freedom to express ourselves, and there was a bunch of people who were doing that as well. Frankly, that's empowering. I am inspired by the people that we've met here, and so here I am. Here I am on my own podcast, and hopefully there's a bunch of you out there that resonate. Shout out to Nashville. I'm not going to do any more shout outs. Okay, that's the last one. But if you feel like that, if you're in some of the major markets and you're feeling like, I would say at the very least, you're feeling like the roots underneath you are taking up all the soil and there's no way that you can build what you're trying to build, come to Nashville, because the soil is fertile and there's lots of room here. It's the volunteer state because people like to give of their heart and their time and try to make things happen. So that's what has empowered me to finally start sooner. Actually, I just want to give a little bit of background about who I am, because I realize now that there is a lot of people, hopefully, who don't know who I am. Hoping to reach out to more than friends and family here. So, like I said, I'm Phillip Abraham, and I started doing filmmaking a long time ago, making home videos. Let me back up a little bit because we'll go broad view first. I'm probably most known as a screenwriter on the Homestead series for Angel Studios. And also, Leah and I released a feature film called Kiss Me Goodbye. We changed the name. It's called Kiss Me Goodbye, and it is a feature-length musical that stars Leah and me. We wrote it together. We produced it. I directed it and edited it. And it's now available out into the world on our Patreon. But there's going to be more platforms where you can watch it now. I also directed a film a long time ago, 10 years ago, that starred Danny Trejo and Jesse Metcalf, along with some other of the usual suspects in the faith-based world. T.C. Stallings, big beefy guy. He played a security guard, killed it. Jackie Velasquez was in the project. And that was so much fun, but it was a long time ago, and I haven't gotten to sink my teeth into directing for other productions, kind of being a hired hand, until as of late. I actually got to direct 2 episodes for Up TV's Sugar Creek Amish Mysteries, and that is that was a real blast. I mean, going into the more, I would say, modern and independent television world, where you are on the fly and you're on the run and you got to figure things out as you go, but you're also producing a high quality content. I think that's just kind of, it feels like it's a good counterbalance to what the world has been used to in the entertainment industry, which is millions of dollars an episode and huge budgets from studios, slow moving. And I think the streamers have really created this almost like unsolvable cinematic television kind of a problem. And I don't know really what the solution is, except for just trying to like pull back on the cost. I don't know how things cost hundreds of millions of dollars, but TV shows will cost hundreds of millions of dollars. And yeah, I think the independent kind of television route where you're running and gunning, but you're filming for multiple months at a time and coming up with 8 or 10 episodes for a season is the way to go. So it was a lot of fun, and the episodes have not come out yet. And we're actually, I don't think they're fully sure, which platform it's going to be on. So I'll kind of keep you updated on that. These are just sort of some high level sort of accolades. I'm putting those first, frankly, just so that you can know that I'm not blowing smoke up your booty. What a Christian thing to say. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. I'm just gonna say it. This is my podcast. I'm gonna say the things. I'm gonna raise this up to PG-13 right now, which means we get to say one F word per episode, per MPAA ratings. So get ready for that. Did I just lose you? So what? Don't care. If you believe that having a mouth that doesn't say particular words that we have deemed to be bad, never mind derogatory slanders toward people, of course that's bad, but just particular words that are like the PG-13 or R-rated version of poop or sex outside of marriage, I really don't think that you have a framework that is accurate around what is pure and how you're using your tongue to glorify God. That's just my belief. Oh man, does that get into my whole philosophy on storytelling? Oh my goodness, I cannot tell you how annoying it is that Christians refuse to depict sin. Just straight up refuse to depict sin. They refuse to acknowledge that Christians themselves in stories can have a profound flaw in their perspective and their worldview because of a wound in their life from the past. And therefore the emotional journey of this story is so flat. It's unwatchable. And, we'll even like remove sin from the lives of the people who are not Christian so as to kind of whitewash that story. Look, maybe this is because Christians are looking for regular good content and then also content that they can have while their kids are in the room. Maybe that's what's going on here. I don't know, but it's not good. It's not, I feel sorry for the kids if that's the case. But yeah, okay, for example, if we were to make a movie about this little parable that Jesus says where he says that there are, what is it? Oh yeah, he's talking about demons. And he says, this is a very brief one, it's not even really a parable. It's sort of another analogy that he uses. And he uses analogies a lot. They're talking about like demons and how, you cast out demons. And he says, when you break into a house to steal everything from the house, what do you do first? You bind the strong man, you put him in a corner, and then you raid the house, right? And he's trying to give an analogy and a picture for demonic possession and the power of it and what kind of how you should operate from that. If I'm totally paraphrasing this, and you can go, this is not going to be an exhaustive and exacting scriptural analysis, by the way. So, but he kind of gives this picture, and I mean, if you can imagine us making this movie, let's say it's a short film, we're just making a quick short film that depicts Jesus's words, where you have two thieves who want to break into a strong rich man's house and plunder and steal everything. So you've got this scene where these guys break into the house, and as per Jesus' words, they grab the strong man and they say, "Get in the gosh darn corner." That is stupid. And what you would obviously do if you were depicting this accurately is you would have these guys come into the room. These guys are like thugs. These guys have been living on the streets, and they're eager to get their drug money. And so they're going to break into this house and steal everything. And if they see that strong man, they're going to go, "Get in the fucking corner." Sorry. That's my F word. That's my PG-13 rating for this episode. And that's just one example about if we are being true to life, if we bring accurate to the story, that we would have to depict a naughty mouth, unfortunately. And I don't know where that all sits. I don't know if we're really heavily concerned about the MPAA, which rated unplanned, if I'm remembering correctly, they rated it R because it depicted an ultrasound of a baby being aborted. And so they said, oh, it's rated R. obviously an agenda to try to make it less viewable to audiences if it's rated R. So I don't really much care for the MPAA and their little rating system. Why don't we as Christians come up with something that we believe to be a really important system of determining whether or not this is good content? And I will tell you that truth is oftentimes not pretty. An example, I think, of how important it is to talk about hard, painful, ugly truths is in the film Toy Story 3. I'm writing a screenplay right now, and right now my Bible for writing a screenplay is just this like hour and a half long YouTube video that Michael Arndt, the screenwriter of Toy Story 3, posted from a lecture he gave at Pixar about storytelling, about what they learned from writing Toy Story 3 over the course of like 4 years, by the way. Full-time job, writing for 4 years. Gosh, that sounds like a dream, but it also, from his description, sounds a bit like a nightmare because he beat his head against the wall time and time and time again. They wrote that film 7 times and turned it into a movie 7 times to be viewed by audiences 7 times in what they call reels. So they would actually have animators animate the story and voice actors come in and voice act the story and then watch it on the screen and get feedback from their brain trust. This is a really long roundabout way of saying that he gave very particular lessons that he learned in that arduous, painful process of how to write a story, and he really hunkers down on the bottom of Act 2. My buddy Chris, I was going to say Chris Veal. My buddy Chris, he told me about a kind of an all is lost moment that basically has the main character shouting, "Oh my God, what have I done?" at the bottom of Act 2. The way that Michael Arndt describes the bottom of Act 2 is that it is a failure of the philosophical stakes. And if you remember in Toy Story 3, Lotso, the bear, who turns out to be the antagonist of this daycare school that they have gotten to and all the kids play at, he says directly to Woody, who has been trying to get back to Andy, who he loves and he believes loves him. He says, if Andy loves you so much, then why is he leaving you? Because if you remember, Andy was going off to college, and they were really wrestling about whether or not they're going to end up in the attic, whether or not Woody should go off to college. It was none of it seemed like a fitting conclusion because of that hard truth that Lotso posed to Woody. And there was no solution at that time. And Michael Arndt describes that as critical. They were dancing around this philosophical failure in the story, maybe because of their own insecurities about the story. It's like sometimes you're making a story and the thing that is just so obviously painfully true is sitting there staring you in the face and you're actually afraid to depict it. I mean, if that's not Christian storytelling over the last 20 years in a nutshell, then I don't know what is, because that's exactly how I feel I'm experiencing faith-based films, is like a deliberate refusal to address the obvious painful truths of life. So he says you got to lean into that. You have to lean into that. He says because the climax of the film is contingent on that. It's critical to the final, just fulfilling beauty of the end of the movie. It's critical that you have this painful truth at the bottom of Act 2 that you can adjust and give new light to in the climax of the film. So in this case, the climax of the film, if you remember, they finally make it out of the dump and barely make it back up to Andy's house and sneak into his bedroom. And they have determined, they're okay with it after the hell of a journey that they went through, that all the toys but Woody are going to go up to the attic, so they hop in the attic box. But they have to say a quick goodbye to Woody because he has been determined that he's going to go to college with Andy. And so they just have this little heartfelt goodbye and run to their respective boxes just as Andy and his mom come into the room. Now, you might remember what she says to Andy there, but what Michael Arndt says is that for 3 years, they pounded their head up against the wall trying to figure out what this resonating moment was. They had a number of different iterations. If you can imagine that. I've been writing a screenplay the last 4 days down in the basement, and it is just torment. Writing is just torment. It's awful. The first hour and a half was, I was literally hitting my head up against the wall. And I made a little video that don't want to share with you. That was just me talking about how I will do anything but sit in front of a blank page of paper. Proverbial paper. So anyway, that pain they went through for years to figure out what this one moment was. And of course, it connects back to that bottom of Act 2 moment. If Andy loved you so much, then why is he leaving? So they finally landed on a connecting point, sort of some ability to pull the thorn out of the side of Woody there. And the way that it is in the film is that his mom walks in with Andy, and she's like, "Have you said goodbye to your sister?" Because he's going off to college. And he's like, yeah, we said goodbye like 10 times. But then the moment she turns and looks in the room, it's like empty. Her kid is going off to college. Andy's mom is feeling the very pain that the toys feel. An empty nester. Molly, his sister, is going to be there. But, goodness, I haven't experienced that pain yet. But watching a child leave and go off and kind of be done with you in some really meaningful sense, it just shocked her right there in that moment. She tears up, and Andy notices, and he's like, "What's wrong?" She says, "I just wish I could be there with you." And Andy says, "Mom, you will be." And Woody sees that through the little slat in the box, and he turns to the contents of the box, and he sees among all these other items, he sees a little picture of young Andy when he was a boy in his formative years, playing with Woody and Buzz and Slink and Rex and Bo Peep, like all of his toys. And you don't need to say any more than that. We know what that means. We feel the release. We feel the thorn being pulled out of his side. It's so good. It's so good. And if we hadn't been willing to go there, I'll say it this way, guys, I'm not going to take any credit for it. If they hadn't been willing to go there and address the painful, hard reality of the whole story, which is like, well, yeah, Andy loves him, but at the same time, he's kind of leaving. We all walk away from our toys. And on a broader note, we all walk away from a lot of relationships in our lives. Our parental relationships, college friends, people who we went on mission trips with. I did Youth with a Mission. Spent 6 months doing God's work, right, in New York City. And then you just say goodbye. And I haven't seen some of those people for 15 years. So that's when the story about toys connects with us. And to kind of really just try to land the plane on that, we as Christians need to be willing to share the painful, unfortunate truths. And this is all just riffing off of me saying the F word or promising that I will, which I came through on that promise. And kind of analyzing what we believe to be good and noble. And I don't think we want to use the words pure anymore. Nobody wants to see a movie that is pure. They want to see a movie that's true. They want to watch stories that are true. And the more that we refuse the truth, and that we refuse to acknowledge the truth, and we don't want to show the truth, the less relevant we are, and the more of a joke we become. So that is a bit about me. And I'm going to step off my soapbox and get back down to a little bit of our history. I'll just say this. I really want to make stories that do that. And yeah. I think that one of the best films that I've ever seen is Shawshank Redemption. That has a lot of cuss words. It does not pull back from the realities of being in prison. Honestly, probably does. But it's still, crass and harsh and gruesome. But amidst that, you can recognize that this is a story, if you haven't seen it, about an innocent man. Maybe the only innocent man, who comes into a place that is surrounded by brick and stone, and he talks about the world on the outside. And he instills hope into these men who had totally given up hope, began to forget about the trees and the music and the beauty. And I was about to say I don't want to ruin the ending, but it is from 1994, so I think it's about time you watch Shawshank Redemption if you haven't. But he has been his entire time here slowly chipping away at the wall. And he has an apparent resurrection from the dead, like a disappearance from the prison, and breaks free because of his hope, his endured, patient hope. And by that hope, he brings a new perspective to Red, played by Morgan Freeman, who for years would go into parole application process and get rejected, because his mindset was wrong. He was never going to go on parole. Been in there since he was 18 years old, and he was never going to go on parole. He was only saying the words, but he never had the heart. And finally, after his relationship with Andy, he says something he's never said before. He's honest. And, it's interesting that Red was really the one who was most reformed by Andy, because at the very beginning of the story, Red says, everyone here is innocent. I'm the only guilty man in Shawshank. And he was the only one who didn't come up with an excuse for his guilt. So you can see how Shawshank Redemption pulls no punches, rated R, hard to watch at times, is maybe a far more theologically enriched message than your weekly sermon. So, that being said, let's, as Christian storytellers and entertainers, continue to fight the good fight. Let's fight the good fight. And if this helps, then follow along. I'm realizing now there's a lot more to get into, but that's all that I've thought about. So, we're going to call this a kind of a pilot episode or an introduction to the podcast. Like literally, if you've finished watching this and you resonate with the podcast, with what I'm saying and kind of the stuff that I want to talk about on the show, then let's get going. Let's do it. I'm going to break down The Odyssey next episode, because I'm going to go see that on Wednesday, and we'll kind of really get into it. I think once we got some real good meat and potatoes to bite into, then then we'll take some more time to do so. Oh, but by the way, I would love your help with coming up with a name for this podcast. I hope that this doesn't become a logistical nightmare on the back end, where I'm like, hey, I'm advertising this podcast to the world, but the first episode doesn't have a name, so what am I advertising? we'll see. I don't know. Maybe I need to just come up with the name and whatnot. But please leave a comment or message me. You can email me, scriptdrphil@gmail.com. That was not taken. I couldn't believe it. But scriptdrphil, Phil with one L, @gmail.com. And let me know what you think the name should be. Can you believe I just asked you to email me comments? I was born in the 80s, guys. I'm sorry. I have to admit it. So help me out with the name. Some things that kind of come to mind are like what I was talking about in this episode that sort of hopefully invoke some inspiration for you, are that stories are the seed. They incept our brains and they inform completely and start to transform our world beliefs, our worldview, our belief systems, and that's probably the most kind of core element to this. It emphasizes the importance of what this podcast is really about. So anyway, I don't want to belabor the point. You've got if you're still here, the audience, the recognition that you made it all the way through, and this is actually resonating with you. You get the idea of it, the core belief, and a little bit of me rambling about why this is happening right now. And so, yeah, thanks a lot for following along. I'll see you next episode, and cheers.